All right. Hello. Thank you for joining us. And I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. For those of you that maybe aren't entirely clear, really the theme of this conversation is exploring the profound telepathic connection between humans and horses. We're going to look at the science behind it, the real world experiences, that some of this is going to challenge our understanding of communication and even consciousness itself. And so I'm really excited to have a couple of friends and colleagues here with me today. You'll get to know them more in a few minutes, but for a brief introduction, Maria Forland. Did you wave, Maria? Maria, with over 25 years of experience, Maria is a renowned spirit artist and a medium. She's also a licensed esthetician. She's based in Cape Cod and owns and operates Zen Beauty and Reiki Center. She offers advanced skincare, energy healing, mediumship, creative workshops, spiritual unfoldment circles, and Reiki training, both in person and through Zoom. And I've known Maria for quite some time, and we've actually taught some workshops and some classes together. So I really respect her work, and it's great to have her here to hear her perspective on all of this. And then we have Deb Draves Legg. Am I saying that right?
Yes, that's good.
I realized I've never said your last name out loud. And Deb is a certified transformational presence coach and ICF accredited associate coach. Deborah has facilitated transformative retreats and equine supported coaching since 2007. She's also a registered nurse, certified death doula, advanced Ipana Quest facilitator, power of the herd instructor, and sand play instructor. So our practitioner rather, sorry. And so just has a wealth of experience. And one of the reasons that we wanted to have this conversation with the three of us is because Deb and Maria had invited me to be part of a 5-day retreat that's going to be coming up actually at the end of May, or I guess middle of May. And, really when I was invited to do this, my role, those of you that know me, my role is much more of the neuroscience, physiology, research kind of element of all of this. And, Deb's got a horse farm. She's got a bunch of horses that she works with people and in different therapeutic contexts. I know nothing about horses. I'm not an animal person. It's just never really been my thing. I'm not against animals. They're great. I just have never really had much connection or experience with them. And so when I was invited to do this, it was kind of like, sure, that sounds great. And in the process, I've already learned a lot about how powerful these horses are in terms of their energy, their sensitivity, and their telepathic ability to communicate with humans, which is something, honestly, I've never considered. And of course, the way the universe works, as soon as we started talking about this workshop, things have just been popping up left and right about the ways that animals can communicate telepathically, and especially horses. So I thought, you know what, we need to have a conversation about this. So we're going to be getting in depth in some of this. And then later in the episode, we're actually going to have a special guest join us for a few minutes. Her name is Laura Hirsch. You'll meet her later. And her son is a non-speaking autistic individual who has experienced this telepathic communication with his horse through his therapeutic interaction. So we'll get to hear from her a bit later. But just as a setup, as a way to kind of get us into this, I wanted to bring up the telepathy tapes. Of course, everybody's talking about the telepathy tapes right now. If you're not familiar with it, it's a 10-episode podcast that explores the telepathic abilities of non-speaking autistic individuals. And it's an amazing podcast. I'm biased because I'm in part of it. I had the opportunity to do some of the brain imaging of some of the non-speakers that are featured in there. But really, this podcast has just done an amazing job of bringing forth some of these ideas. And there is some discussion about animal communication throughout the telepathy tapes. And then there's sort of a special series that the producer of the Telepathy Tape started offering after the 10, the primary 10 episodes. And she calls them talk tracks, where it's kind of in depth with some other individuals or aspects that didn't get explored as much in the primary season. And when you know it, one of those episodes features animal telepathy. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that for a minute, maybe as a jumping off point, because one of the stories that they told featured this woman. Her name's Ditte Young. As best I can tell, she lives in Denmark, but she does work all over Europe. And this is her job. This is what she does, is she telepathically interacts with horses in particular, other animals as well, but horses, really helping riders, like high-level national champion Olympic riders all over Europe, figure out what's going on with their horses, if they're having trouble or they're having struggles or what's going on. And so listening to some of Ditte's stories, I thought was really inspiring and also raised some interesting questions that I want to dive into. So just a quick recap of one of her stories. So she was telling a story about working with this national champion rider. I don't remember which country it was exactly, but she was having trouble with her horse whenever they had to travel. The horse didn't want to get in the trailer. Every time they would get somewhere, the horse would be exhausted and dehydrated. You know, it didn't perform well when they got there. So this was a big problem, right? And she could not figure out what to do. Now, and I think this is important to point out that these are professional riders. These are like top level riders, you know, and like they're stuck. They don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what's going on with my horse, right? And called Ditte in. She telepathically had this conversation with the horse. And the information she got was that the horse was really uncomfortable in the trailer because they didn't know what was coming up. And so the shifts in the road, and there was turns, and it was stressful, sort of feeling unstable, feeling, you know, awkward. And so the horse apparently telepathically told Ditte to tell the rider, hey, as you're driving, if you could just mentally give me a heads up, right? Oh, we're going to take a left now. Oh, this is what's coming up. This is what we're doing. Oh, we've got an hour left, whatever, right? And of course, the writer initially was like, this is nuts, right? This is crazy, right? Like, this makes no sense. But she did it anyway, right? So the whole 2-hour drive, wherever they were going, she's mentally telling the horse what's going on. They get where they're going. The horse is in great shape. They win a silver medal. It's all good, right? And then going back home, she forgot, right? She forgot to do it. And they get back home, and guess what? The horse is distressed, dehydrated, you know, wiped out, you know, from the experience. So, you know, now she does it every time. Every time that they have to travel, she does this. So this is kind of an interesting issue, right? It's like, what's going on here? And so I wanted to use this as a jumping off point and get your take, Deb, especially. And Maria, you jump in too. But what do you think about this, Deb? Is this something you've seen before, or how does this work?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How does it work? And I think the thing that puts us in already kind of behind the 8 ball, let's say, is that we're humans and we can speak. And I think when I started to realize there was something more happening than I understood before as a human, was the horses were teaching me that there is more to this universe than we realize. And the first time it happened to me, I was working with a family in a little clearing when we were in Costa Rica, and there was a horse that was with us. His name is Dorado. And we were working on like setting boundaries and family dynamics, those kinds of things for a few days. Actually, it was like a 3-day workshop. And there was this big giant bee. This was in Costa Rica. And this big bee, as big as a ping pong ball. And they live in colonies of about 10. They're not really aggressive, but if they do sting you, it hurts really, really bad. So we were working, and this bee was just like bzz, bzz, flying around. We were standing in a little circle, the family talking about what happened the day before. And and then I was just worried that this bee was going to sting the kid or somebody, and I didn't want that to happen. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to kill this bee because I don't want him pestering us all day. So I went to smack him onto the ground to step on it, and Dorado, the horse, came in front of me and like grabbed the bee by his forehead, and he started bouncing the bee on his forehead, bing, 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 and trotted and kind of pushed through the bee into the woods, into the rainforest, and then he came back into the circle. And then I'm like to the family, I'm like, did you guys just see that? And the family's like, I don't know. What did you see? And the kid goes, Dorado saved us from the bee. And then the horse was just kept, Dorado, he just kept staring at me like, yeah, I don't think that was it. And then I realized he saved the bee from me. And that was like the first time that I'm like, what in the heck just is going on here? And you can't, there's no other way to describe that but to understand benevolence, I think, goes way beyond how we look at it as a human being. And that was a very benevolent gesture of the horse to save that bee and make sure I saw it and knew what happened, right?
So, so that story, and then thinking back to the story that we talked about, at the beginning here. So,
Mhm.
do you feel like do horses do they respond to your what's going on in your mind and
Mhm.
is it the feeling that they're responding to, or is it images that you have in your mind that they're responding to? Like, what are they picking up on, do you think?
Well, I think I learned the most about horses from autistic people that I've worked with. And I remember the first time this kind of came to me too. There was a verbal autistic woman. She was like 40, and she was riding this horse. She was sitting on the back of this horse named Conan, and she wanted to work on remembering or carrying out a sequence of events. That's what her mom said, and they decided together. So they were going to work on that with the horse. And so I put different colored washcloths, I think, or something, or rags around and clipped them to trees or whatever. And I said, okay, go get the blue one and then the red one and the yellow one, something like that. And so she's like, okay. And she wasn't even steering the horse. She couldn't ride. She could just mostly hang on. That was it. So, but she's just sitting on the back of the horse and she goes over, picks the red one, then the blue one, then just like I told her, and she comes back and she has all these rags. And I'm like, wow, that was just great. But Beth, her name was Beth, but you weren't steering or talking or anything. And she goes, oh, I think it. And he does it. And then the horse lowers his head and licks and chews, which of course is an indication of this alignment of the validity of what she just said. Um, and and so I think, when we tap into the way other species communicate and we use our ability as a human being to be that flexible and don't expect them to speak like us or communicate like a human, we really need to learn to communicate like other species do in order to open up that channel.
And so this is one thing I'm curious about. Just listening to some of the things that I've been paying attention to recently, and hearing some of the stories that you've told me before.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of sounds like the horses. Yes, they can pick up on your emotions. I mean, we've all heard that horses know when you're afraid, right? But it
Right.
sounds like it's much bigger than that.
Mhm.
But it also seems like maybe they pick up on images that you have in your mind, but maybe do they also pick up on the words? Like if you're thinking in words, does it matter? Like that the horse can read your mind no matter what form it takes? Does it, what's your feeling about that?
Well, I think for me, maybe in the last year, that's maybe a place where I've been learning how to um, shift into a better way to communicate with my horses because first I think in words and not pictures. And actually, just a few weeks ago, I have this horse that I'm working with that has a lot of trauma. And anyway, he thinks humans are all going to kill him. And I said to him, I said, look, I'm not a horse. The way I think words first. And I just kind of said that out loud to him, and he just kind of looked at me like, oh, okay. So give me a break. And if I don't make sense, because I'm just learning how to evolve this a little bit. And that actually just saying that made our relationship a little bit better. So I can try to, talk about it and figure it out. But I think the most important thing is when we're aligned with our inside and outside. So whatever's going on inside of me is like, I'm really frustrated. I don't really know how to communicate with him the way he needs. But so if I keep trying, I think I kind of stay in the frustrated place. But if I quit trying and just tell him whatever that is energetically did bring me to a place of alignment. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question, but it's complicated. It is really complicated. And it's not a horse problem, it's a human problem.
I have to just jump in here because
Do
I
it.
know you, and I feel like it's heart to heart. You know, the animal
Mhm.
responds to the depth of your heart. And with that intention, maybe he was startled with perhaps the tone of your voice or the posture that you had, but he could understand from your heart through your mind's heart, if you will, that
Mhm.
it's going to be okay. He gets it now. He understands that you truly want to support him in all of his efforts. So it's a heart to heart communication that bypasses our word and thought. That energy is strong, regardless of who we're working with, or what pet we're working with, or what animal we are working with.
Mhm.
Even a squirrel. Uh, they know I love them. They anyway, I digress. So anyway,
Well,
truly, I've met your horses through the barn in that experience, and when they gathered around us in that place of love, you could feel them bringing something to us, adding to the conversation. And that was a remarkable experience for me. That was the first time I had ever experienced anything like that. And here we were on Zoom,
They like Zoom.
and they were responding to us. Now, I'm still unclear. Was it our voice, the pattern of our speech? Was it the love that we were sharing between us, that we were talking about the animals? But then we really weren't talking about the animals at one point, and they were all um, congregating. And one of them stuck their nose right into the Zoom, the white one. Well, I can't
Mhm.
remember that horse's name.
Mhm. Well, it was a little one or a big one?
The little one was there clearly on and
Yeah.
off,
Uh-huh.
pushing
The other
in,
white one,
but
yeah.
then the big
Oh,
white one
Halsey. Yeah, Halsey. Yeah, the mare.
came in and stuck that nose right in front of the screen, and it was just like, oh my goodness, what are they? They're talking to us. They're telling us things. They're supporting that. Your version was they're supporting us um, in our thoughts, in our plans, that we were on the right track, trying to figure out how to express some of these feelings that we have about how we work with the animals. I think that was one of them.
Hmm. Well, maybe the heart is the great translator, like
Mm.
what you're saying. And maybe our own heart, speak for myself then, my own heart knows how to translate when I ask it or I intentionally enter that space, then my heart helps to translate to the horse. Maybe. This is
I
just
feel
a
that is
thought.
true.
Yeah. And then, in that field, in that energetic field, it's global, isn't it? Or even beyond. And it doesn't matter if it's happening through a computer or if it's in person. Yeah.
you know, in doing a little bit of research for this conversation and for our upcoming workshop, I saw several different people kind of saying things that gave me the impression that it's much easier for the horses to hear us and connect with us if we, and I think you kind of said this, Deb, if we are centered and if we are coming from a place of being truthful, being consistent, and being sort of open-hearted, which is kind of what I'm hearing you guys say. And
Mhm.
so it makes me also wonder if we're distressed or we're agitated or maybe we don't have the best intentions. I wonder what your experience, Deb, of like what the horses do with that. Like, how do they respond to that? If people are coming at them and they're not in the right place.
Um, they're still, for the most part, they're going to let you know that you're not congruent in your thought and in your action. And so there have been some studies, especially I think through the HeartMath organization, where the horse magnifies whatever's going on inside of us, and this is a big part of the process, in order for us to identify this is what they see. They don't care who's coming to interact with them, what your horse experience is, how old you are, what kind of diagnosis you have. They don't care about any of that. All they see is, here comes this human being that may have the intention to connect with me, but that's not really what's going on. And I feel like because they're prey animals with 60 million years of experience of evolution, right? And we have 6 million years of evolution. They have 60. They know the more connected we are, the better chance of survival we all have. And the way to be connected is to be in the herd with them, present authentically. Because if something is going on inside of us that we're not bringing to the surface, that's really distracting. And so if I'm out with them, for example, and I'm festering about something, then I'm the weak link, actually. And I'm the one that's going to get eaten by the predators. The weak one is the one that gets eaten. And it also attracts predators when you're not congruent as a prey animal with this evolutionary process of how to survive, basically, how to survive.
Can I ask a question? When you were in that state and you felt restless, did the horse gravitate toward you and help you in some way? Was this energy a calming effect?
Well, that horse is a little different situation. So he just doesn't want anything to do with me if I'm not congruent, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
so another horse because wherever we rescued that horse from the police department in Birmingham, Alabama. So we don't know. He was tied up to a tree. Somebody found him. Who knows what all happened? I never have had experienced something that profound, a horse that had that much trauma, whatever it is. So he's my whole learning curve, right? But other horses that don't have that kind of history, in my experience, they'll tend to stay with you and wait. They're so patient and they're such good holders of space for us like I said, they start magnifying it and start bringing to the surface in order to be congruent. So then we can all be together and just go eat then.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's interesting. You brought up the HeartMath research, and I wanted to kind of tie that in a little bit, of course, because that's kind of my that fits into stuff I understand. Physiology and what's going on, and so you mentioned Ann Baldwin and also Ellen Gerke were the two researchers that they did some research with HeartMath, which what they were doing is measuring heart rate variability, which is a good measure of your balance in your nervous system. Are you in a state of congruence, like you were just saying, right? Or are we centered and we're not overly stressed, right? We're kind of where we need to be. And they figured out a way to hook these up. And actually, I think they did some of this research with you, didn't they, Deb?
Yes.
But so they found a way to hook up the horses as well. So they could measure the horses' heart rate variability as well as the humans. And the research I saw, they did two different things that I think were really interesting. And the first one was Ellen sat down and started kind of meditating, right? So they're both hooked up, her and her horse are both hooked up, but she starts meditating and just focusing on appreciation for the horse, right? She's not saying anything out loud. She's not talking to the horse. She's not petting the horse. And so, of course, her heart rate variability became more balanced and more congruent. We use the term coherence in this in this work. But what was interesting is the horse became more coherent too. There was no communication, no overt communication, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like that was cool. And then they replicated it with several other pairs of people, with humans and horses. That, when the human was able to get balanced, the horse got more balanced. And so that was really interesting. The other thing that they talked about was that when humans were interacting with these horses, there was an aspect of their heart rate variability that increased significantly. It's called the very low frequency. It's a specific little part of the heart rate variability. And what's interesting about that is that this very low frequency decreases when we're stressed. It decreases when we're stressed, and it decreases in relation to a bunch of health concerns. So when we're interacting with these horses, that increases. And the other thing that was interesting that I found was that frequency is already really strong in horses.
Mhm.
So maybe it goes both ways, right? The horses are influencing us to improve our balance and our coherence and whatever that is, but we can also influence them. So I mean, this research almost sounds like it's a two-way street.
I'm not positive about that, because I think there's an element to that the horse again is magnifying something inside of us by bringing it to us. Because in the study that we did baselines on the horses before they came into the activity, and they were all fine. They were all completely in a state of congruence. They go in with the humans and they're like, whoa. And we did another measurement before we went in. And this was a study we did with Dr. Baldwin during the horse partnering exercise, where we partner the horse with the human. And yeah, super fascinating things. And I mean, the more you research and the numbers that we look at, the more opportunity there is to look at it through other lenses as well, right? So
Was this when the horse picked the human?
yes. Uh-huh.
So you think that the horse was saying, look, this person, I gravitate toward this person for a very particular reason. Is this
Mhm.
what you're saying?
And
With their
that's what the research showed. We measured 5 factors of the heart rate variability, and these factors, like you were saying, Jeff, have to be in balance in order for us to be in a state of congruence. And so the horse that picked this person brought in exactly what they needed to to be congruent. And everyone was different.
Amazing.
But remember, before the horse came and saw the people, they were in a state of congruence.
Mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah.
so when they saw the people, they're assessing the situation, right? And anyway, but because in the state of congruence, this is where the connection is. And the more connected we are, the better chance of survival we all have. And also as prey animals, and this is like in their genetics, right? And then as prey animals, the more diverse a group is, the better chance of survival as well, because diversity creates resistance to disease and other kinds of things too. So this is, I think, one of the reasons why horses are so good at this work for us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I've actually got a phone call set up with Dr. Baldwin for Monday.
Oh, good.
And I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to figure it out so that we can continue this research at the retreat that we're going to be offering. So we can expand on some of these findings and see what we can come up with.
No, I know, that's fantastic. That would
I
be
know
great.
that's going to be so.
One time, I wanted to say one time, I just remembered this incident, and I was working with one of the heart math monitors, and I was really like in a tizzy about something. I don't remember. This was when I was in Costa Rica, and my mare, the picture that you have behind there, her name is Hitana. She had a baby whose name was Sedona, and so anyway, I went out in the barn. They were in the barn together, and the baby was really little. I think she was. That's why they were in the barn together, because she was maybe a few days old or something like that. And I had the heart rate monitor on, and from heart math, and I was so incongruent. I mean, the light was beeping red, 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 green's when you're in this state of congruence. And I was like breathing, I was doing all these things. I was standing next to her, and I could sense that she was trying to support me to get in the zone, right? And then the baby, Sedona, walked up. They positioned themselves. So I was between the two of them, just like that. I went into green.
Mhm.
And so here she was already teaching her baby, this is how you handle this lady because she's, you know. and and I just remembered that, forgot all about that when you were saying that. I thought it was important, I guess, to say.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to shift gears just a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, yeah, yeah. Maria knows where this is going. So, so it's another one of these areas of ignorance for me, right? I mean, I've done lots of brain maps with mediums and psychics and healers and all kinds of things, and I've heard mediums talk about, oh, I see a little cat running around, right? And they're talking about from the other side or whatever it might be. And honestly, I've never paid much attention to that, again, because I'm just not an animal person. But so I wanted to bring that up and see, like, is that something that happens for you, Maria? Like when you're tapping in or you're doing a reading for somebody, do you pick up pets? Like what is the connection with animals there in the spirit world?
Yes, I do. And there are many debates on how we're getting that information. Some, and so I want to just set this up just a little bit. Uh, some would believe that we are responding telepathically, mediumistically. Some believe that we are in a psychic state by reading the person that we're focused on, and we're picking up some energetic template.
So if they're like if there's something in their energy that's thinking about their pet or something,
Correct.
that's what you're picking up on. You're not actually seeing them on the other side.
Right. But see, if we're debating telepathic versus mediumistic, many believe that telepathic is more energetic and mediumship is more receptive. And I have been at this for too long to debate it. I just know what I've experienced. So the truth for me, this is a good example. As mediums, we're looking for evidence, and we need to make sure that we are secure in that evidence. And how we receive it, depending on the frequency that we're receiving, will give us that evidence. So I'm working with this woman, and as she's looking for her mom and dad. I don't know this. So Spirit comes in and shares with me this beautiful vista, this farm. No mountains in the background, and I'm expressing to her what I'm receiving in my mind's eye. And I see these beautiful animals roaming around, and I'm not speaking to these animals. I'm just interpreting this vista. And she said, "Oh, yes, that's our family farm." Now, with a completely different tone in my mind's eye, and now I'm on a limb, I hear a dog barking. And I said, "Oh, now there's a beautiful dog here barking, all energetically jumping around. And oh, that's her dog, you see. That's her dog." Now, was that psychic or was that mediumistic? I clearly knew the tone shifted in my mind. I wasn't attached to the animals that were in the pack in the field, but the vista gave me the information. Now, did we go on with the dog? Did the dog give me any more information in that particular reading? No. Was she happy that the dog appeared in the reading with her family and her vista of the farm? Yes. So we try to comfort, soothe, and heal as mediums. So we're not looking to target or receive anything specifically, but it always helps. Now, occasionally I'll see in my mind's eye again, I'll see a little parakeet. Or I mean, the parakeet was strange to me because we talk in terms of bird brains, and do birds have brains? And of course, I feel that they do. And the bird indicated to me that he loved his little purple bill. And did I receive that in my mind's eye? Did I? Uh, did I hear him say that? I'm not sure. I just delivered the information that I felt from my heart. Now, here's what I need to know in the big picture. When we're connecting in that way with that pet that beloved pet, and we all have these experiences that are, with our dogs, our cats, whatsoever. Is it because of the love, again, that we've built that bridge? Like, why wouldn't I be able to connect with a pack of cows, for instance? Why would I just see the cows? But it's the love of one particular cow that would give me a moment to pause while I'm trying to bring through evidence and sift through this multi-dimensional experience. Am I on track so far? Because sometimes I can go off to the deep end.
Yeah, so it sounds like yes, pets and animals come through frequently. That's a thing. We from an evidence standpoint, we can't prove that it's necessarily you talking to the spirit of the animal on the other side versus picking up information from the person you're reading for. But what's your, if you're comfortable saying, what's your personal belief? Like, you've been doing this a long time. Do you believe that the animals are on the other side, that these pets and these other beloved creatures, that they're actually there? They're actually there in spirit.
Yes,
You
I
do.
do, with all my heart. And, I'll take a bullet for that one. Because that's a great debate, and that's an age-old question. Do ants have souls? Do plants feel sensitivities? I don't care about any of that anymore. I just know that where I live in my heart now, and I've seen enough to it just blows my mind. Again, I'm not quite sure if it's telepathic, and what does that mean in soul to soul response? Um, Here's an interesting fact, Jeff. I know you love this stuff about the brain, so I'm going to give you a little correlation. Now, cats have a tremendous reputation for being intuitive. And when they hooked up a cat's brain, he was in the theta state. No, he was in the alpha state. He was in the alpha state. And now, isn't that the state that we like to be in when we're kind of tuning in? Some of us, I mean, my brain works a little differently, as we know, but for because of the spirit art, I think it's a different activity in my brain that has to come forward. But that's pretty interesting. A cat has a reputation of being a very intuitive animal, and there they are in resting state, just meditating. So you can't deny that sensitivity. So I guess I feel also that the love of our pets bring us to that place of yearning to continue to make sure that they're safe, just like we do with our loved ones. And for anyone that has animals in their care, they know. I mean, the animal will come up and go, all right, you've had enough of the computer, man. They'll push their paw on you. It's time to be fed. I used to feed my dog with meatballs. And yeah, I tell too much. Anyway, a medium, and I was missing my dog terribly. This dog was just, I mean, I could tell you stories about him interacting with my brother-in-law as well. But I used to feed him meatballs, and when he was with a babysitter, an animal sitter, one particular woman refused to feed the dog with the meatballs, and she's like, he wouldn't eat. And then I finally got him to eat. I made him eat. Well, you made my dog eat. And so this beautiful animal communicator, this wonderful medium brought through my dog, and I said, well, why didn't he eat for that woman? And why did he just want meatballs? And you know what she said? She said the dog expressed to her that I enjoyed feeding the dog the meatballs, not the dog. He could have cared less. He could have eaten off the floor, out in the backyard, whatever. It was my way of bonding. So he put up with me. He put up with me feeding him meatballs. So anyway, there you go.
Well, and of course, meatballs are delicious. So,
They are.
there's that.
Well, dog food meatballs.
Well,
I
okay.
would
All
make
right. Okay.
dog food and mix
Oh,
up
okay.
special
Yeah.
batches and put a little carrot in there,
Yeah.
make it special. But yeah.
Okay. So here's one more tricky one for you.
Okay.
So, can horses be spirit guides or messengers from the other side?
Yes.
Yes, and I believe that to be solidly true as well. I wanted to pause for just a moment because uh, some people don't believe that there are such things as spirit guides.
Mm,
And and I cannot for one second feel that that is so. We're seeing signs through nature. Uh, our beloveds can manipulate events. I'm not sure if they're manipulating the animal, but they're manipulating us somehow to be in a specific place to see a certain thing that, is referencing your mother, for instance, or um, spirit guides, yes. And helpers in our world, Deb, you're proving that time and time again that they are, and to me, that is a spirit guide. That is a spirit guide. When that cat comes up to you when you're crying, I believe that that is an indication of spirit guiding us. So it's just the way we look at things, I think, and to continue to be curious with an open mind. And that's why this whole retreat is blowing my mind. The more that I'm investigating different types of frequencies, we're developing even more sensitivity, because the average human being just puts their clothes on, drinks their coffee, and runs out of the house. But when we're in training to feel that there's so much more and to be exposed to these kinds of things, we're opening doors that will help people to live their daily life and have more joy.
mhm. Well, what connects everything is the glue when I'm listening to you talk is love. And
Yes,
this transcends to the other side. And it, and if you're working with an animal in love, that's when the doors start opening. And yeah, that's maybe just what they're teaching us as part of our evolution.
I don't like snakes particularly. Am I? And I've never received any information from a pet snake. Okay. No, so I feel that spirit uses us in the best way that we are capable of understanding. And I'll just stop there. Uh,
Yeah, no, that's good. And Laura, our special guest, was just trying to get into the room a second ago, and I was kind
oh,
of waiting,
okay.
and now she disappeared. So
Oh
hopefully
no.
she will come back here in just a second. And when she comes back, I may interrupt our conversation just to let her in the room.
Oh, please.
Sure.
So in the meantime, hopefully she'll log back in. Oh, there she is, right there. Look,
Oh, good, good, good.
see, she was reading my mind.
Mhm.
So let's get Laura in here.
You
Hey,
guys,
Laura.
I
Hi.
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 Thanks for joining us. Good timing. Sorry I left you hanging in the room there a second ago. I was waiting for a good opportunity to bring you in. Laura, quick introduction. This is Maria Forland. Maria, if you want to wave. And Maria is a spirit artist and medium that I've been working with for many years. And actually, I think we've talked before. You've got some experience with spirit art as well, and some connections in that world. And then Deb is the one who works with the horses, and she's been doing this for what, 20 something years, right?
Well, since seven, probably, yeah, 2006 and seven. Yep. Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, and does a lot of work, therapeutically with the horses, but then also has a lot of stories about their sort of telepathic abilities and their ways to work with us as humans. And so, anyway, I really appreciate you jumping on. Especially, I know today is a little bit of a rough day in this regard, and so I don't want to say anything more. If you would like to kind of introduce yourself a little bit, and then also whatever you're comfortable kind of sharing with kind of what's happening in your own world right now in terms of horses and horse communication.
Sure. So yeah, today is a little bit of a rough day. My son Trevor is a speller. He has autism. He's 26, and he's been riding horses at a center here in Reno called the Center for Adaptive Riding, and he takes lessons and he just loves horses. And since he's been able to spell, he's shared with me that he talks to his horses telepathically when he's riding them, even when he's not riding them. But he was riding this one horse named Blackjack that was so special to him and still is. He's actually going to be put down today because he has cancer. And so Trevor, I asked him, we went to visit him a couple days ago, and I told him that what was going on and spelled with him. And he just said the most beautiful, amazing things that he already knew. Blackjack told him telepathically that he was going to be going to heaven. And he hasn't been able to ride Blackjack in about a year because he's older. He's 26 and he couldn't ride with any riders that were over 100 pounds. So he's been riding this horse called Dude. But they just had this really special connection. And excuse me. So he said, you know, he was happy that Blackjack was going home to heaven and that he can ride him now every day on the hill, which is where the kids that are like Trevor go when they're sleeping and communicate with each other telepathically. So he can ride Blackjack every day now, and he was happy about that. He wasn't sad like I was. I was the one crying all day. And so when he first started riding Blackjack, he would tell me all these amazing stories, not stories, but what they talked about. And when I really knew it was real was when Trevor knew things that no one told him. For instance, there was one horse that named Buck that Trevor had ridden the year before. And I said, you know, what did you experience today riding Blackjack? What did you guys talk about? And he spelled, Blackjack was sad today because Buck died. And I'm like, how did you know that? And he said, I said, did you overhear someone talk about it? And he said, no, Blackjack told me. And it was true, he did. And a separate time, the same thing, he said, we went to visit him. He wasn't even riding him. And Blackjack didn't come over and let us pet him or anything. And I said, what was going on with Blackjack today? And he spelled, Blackjack was mourning because Sully died. And Sully was the horse right next to him. And I was blown away. Again, no one told him that. So it was definitely happening. And just the connection between them was just so beautiful. And he talks to Dude also, but they just had this very special connection and still do.
Yeah, so it's interesting because, you know, some of the topics that we were discussing earlier, you're kind of addressing. You know, one of the questions I had asked was if the telepathy between a human and a horse can go both ways. You know, is it just that the human is picking up, or sorry, that the horse is picking up what the human is saying? But at least in this case with Trevor, you described it goes both ways, that he was getting information from Blackjack.
Yeah. And there was another really amazing thing that Trevor knew that no one told him was the old director of Center for Adaptive Riding told us that she was pregnant. And Trevor he was out riding. He wasn't on the conversation, and she had to step down. And I said, when we got home, I said, what did you and Blackjack talk about today? And he spelled, we talked about Nikki being pregnant with triplets. Not just pregnant, she was pregnant with triplets and has triplets now. So,
oh my God.
Again, no one told him, but I mean, it's just story after story after story. And we wrote a book together. Trevor, it was his idea. He said, I want to write a book with you about my life to inspire others. And the horses were kind of the first evidence of his telepathic abilities. Then he also started talking about, with medium, he's a medium. He talks to angels. Like we go to a couple of healing centers around here, the energy enhancement system and the tachyon chamber. And whenever he's in there, he goes into this very deep meditative state and goes to heaven and talks to angels. And he always names people that have passed away, like my brother, my sister, my dad, and my first husband, who he never met, died when I was really young. And he always spells his name and gives me messages from him. And so then after that, he and I started talking telepathically. We're part of the Telepathy Tapes also, which Jeff's involved with. We were in episode 10, the Spellers episode, and I started doing tests with him, mind to mind with me. And he's 100% accurate with everything, numbers, words, phrases, and even songs. He plays the piano and sings, even though he doesn't speak. That's a different part of the brain. So he's able to sing songs, play the piano, we sing together, but he can hear me singing a song in my head and spell out what the song title is and who sings it. It's amazing.
Will he be teaching classes in the future? I'd love to sign up for his class.
Pretty incredible, but that's I mean, that's all of his telepathic gifts that have come up since he's learned how to do spelling to communicate. And we've been doing that for 3 years now. And he's an open speller, so I can just ask him anything, and he, letter by letter, just types it out on the board, and that's all in our book. So more
Did
than
you feel as a child that you had these experiences as well, intuitively, or?
Not as a child, but after Trevor was diagnosed with autism, I became a healer. So I became a Reiki master, and then a reconnective healing practitioner, and just to help him. But now when I do that work, I also am more like clairsentient, clairaudient, but he's clairvoyant. Like he sees spirits in the house, and sometimes it freaks him out, but then he'll tell me who it was that he saw. And I know I never thought I'd be having these conversations with him, but I have to tell him, set a boundary with them. You have to tell him not to just show up in the kitchen, but in a safe space when, you're in your meditative state or when you're sleeping. Come to me then. So that's something I hadn't thought I'd be dealing with in life, but here we are.
Wow. Thank you.
It's interesting. I'm kind of listening to your stories and your experiences and Trevor's experiences, and thinking about adults like him who are spellers and who are like so telepathic, like so in tune, right? And most of the conversation is around doing that ability with their primary caregiver, right? So he knows what song you've got in your head, or what you're thinking, or whatever like that. But it also sounds like it enhances their ability to connect with animals as well, right? Like it's not just humans. And I wonder if that's true with other spellers, or if you've heard of that, of other spellers having these telepathic connections with whether it's their pet dog or horses or anything else. Have you heard of that from other spellers?
One of my friends said that when she read about Trevor spelling about his horse, he said he spelled to his mom, "I talked to my horse too." So he didn't go into detail like what Trevor does. I don't know what they talked about, but he does. And I also know another medium here that she has horses, and she first was a horse whisperer. She'd talk to the horses. And when they first started doing therapeutic riding there, they put a person with autism on the horse, and the horse told her, "This person can hear me talking to them, and like we talk." So the child told the medium something to the mother that the mother knew was correct, and it was the horse, getting the information from the child that was riding it. So then she became a medium. She started talking to people, but she started with horses.
Interesting. I wonder if that's easier for some people. The other thing that you brought up, tied back to some of our conversation earlier, was, I was asking questions about, simple questions like, hey, do animals have souls? Do they exist in the afterlife? And it sounds like, based on what you said from Trevor's experience, the answer is a pretty clear yes. That he interacts with his horses that he's ridden previously and things of that nature.
Yeah. He also told me about we have always had dogs. And when Trevor was little, we had a Siberian Husky named Dakota. And he told me recently that his favorite dog we ever had was Dakota, and that he still he said, she talked to me telepathically. And I said, do you still connect with her telepathically? And he said, yes. So he talks to her in spirit, and the horses too. Like he's told me, horses are connected for eternity. that they're still around, they're stable, energetically. So, I mean, it's just so beautiful to think about that. Like they're always connected. Like these souls meet here and that bond never goes away.
I love that. It's I mean, in some ways, that would be a perfect place to wrap this up. But I do want to ask one more question, and this is to everybody. So, certainly you, Laura, but anybody else that would want to chime in here. So, because the focus of this conversation is mostly around working with horses and the telepathic ability that they seem to have, right? So I'm curious about this. How do you all feel like horses teach humans to be more present and grounded and attuned to our own energy, or maybe, the energy in a broader sense? Like, how do horses do that? Because I've clearly heard that this seems to be an effect of working with horses. So I'm just curious what this team, what your thoughts are.
I'd be interested to hear from, go ahead. Sorry. I wanted to hear what Laura had to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You guys start.
Deb.
Well, I lost my train of thought now, just for a second. So maybe go ahead, Laura, go ahead.
Well, I know there's been studies even done with like the Heart Math Institute that horses put off from their heart around them just this field that just being near them is healing. And even when Trevor was riding Dude the other day, the lady that was running the lesson said that blackjack, or Dude, sorry, they can feel your heart like from 4 feet away. So he said, Dude is listening to your heart right now when you're on him. So, and I feel it just being around them too. They're just these beautiful, amazing animals. I could feel in my own heart, like when I'm around them, just this calmness. It's like they're natural healers.
So, and I think that comes because we are a predator, right? Genetically, we're predators, and cats are predators, and dogs are predators, and those are the animals that we most, share our life with. But horses are prey animals, and prey animals are non-judgmental, generally speaking, because the judgment is a predatory energy. Because like if you think of a jaguar or whatever, a cougar that's hunting somewhere, they're going to judge which one of those animals is lame, because that's the one I'm going to eat. All right. And so when we're coming from a place as a predator, and then we enter into this herd of horses, which don't judge us. The first thing is they don't judge. They're assessing or discerning how they can support us instead of judging us to see if we're worthy. That is the key there.
Well, and maybe that's it, right? Like that it's like just, because, I mean, even if we're around a human that's truly non-judgmental, that has a healing effect, right? If you're around somebody who's enlightened, whatever that is, right? Just being in their presence has a healing potential. So maybe horses are just naturally enlightened, right? And just being in that space, they've got a big non-judgmental heart, and just being near them is maybe all it takes.
Mm-hmm. And that's setting an example also then of how to go back into our human society without judgment. I mean, we can't help it. You walk into a party and everyone is like, oh, what are they wearing? Or who is that? It's all, even though it's super subtle, it's all judgmental.
Yeah, for sure.
And from my experience working with people with autism, and then also as a nurse and a pediatric nurse from years ago, and used to do developmental evaluations on kids. And there we go. That's so predatory. Is this kid autistic? And then we try to, well, you have this experience with this, Laura, but just from the other side of it, I learned that from the horses, once we quit judging the person that isn't like us, they bloom into who they're meant to be, instead of putting all their energy and effort into trying to be like us, they can be who they are. Wow, that's amazing. And the horse does that. They're just like, oh, here comes somebody. This is what they're like, and there again comes that diversity. I had a animal communicator at one time tell me, but I already knew, the horse said when they carry and work with autistic people, they give them the gift of seeing the world without autism. And I think that now that I'm just hearing some of this other information, maybe that's so they can get along better with us. Not for their benefit, maybe it's for our benefit.
Probably. Yeah. Laura, I know you have to go in a minute. And actually we're up at the top of the hour. Laura, tell us the name of the book that you've got out. Or do you have more than one book?
I have more than one book. Well, my website is laurahirschauthor.com. All of them are on there, but the one that I wrote with Trevor is, one's called The Other Side of Autism, and it's a channel book about autism with mediums, my friends that are a medium and a spirit artist, Michael and Marty Perry. So she draws pictures of people in spirit, and it's pretty amazing. Their website has a lot of side-by-side pictures of the person Marty drew, and then the actual photo of the person that got sent to her after she drew them. And it's spiritart.com if anyone wants to check that out. But my book with Trevor is called More Than Meets the Eye, and he actually titled the book. He came up with the title, and it just chronicles everything that's happened with the music. It's like 3 different sections: his music, like learning how to play the piano and sing, and then how he learned spelling to communicate in that whole process. And then the last chapter is called The Divine Messenger, and there's a whole section on the horse whisperer, like 26, I think, different times that he spelled to me about riding horses, and then the healing stuff, that talking to angels and all that. So very, very different book, but it's really opening people's eyes to their telepathic gifts, how they've been underestimated and looked at as a totally different type of human being than they actually are.
Amazing.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your diligence and your fearlessness to tell the truth.
Okay.
Really appreciate you.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys are all amazing. And Maria, where can people find out more about you?
My website, Maria Forland Spirit Artist, medium.com.
That's all. That's the whole thing. Maria
That's
Forland,
the whole thing. Yep,
Maria
Deb
Forland,
helped me.
Spirit Artist, Medium.
Yeah, you could just, Maria Forland Spirit, and it'll probably come up in that.
Okay, all right.
Spirit Artist.
Yeah. And how about you, Deb? Where can people learn more about the work that you're doing with these amazing horses?
Equanicity.com. So,
Equinicity.
Yeah, yep, that's the name of my company. Yep.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts or words anybody wants to share before we wrap this up? I appreciate everything that has been kind of brought forward in this conversation, but if there's any final thoughts or comments.
I just want everybody to have an open mind. I just want them to be curious. And that word judgment, if we could just strike it out and just say the endless possibilities of what we know and what we do not know will bring us a better understanding of who we are. Learning every day. That's what I would like to say. Just opening our hearts to more and more that's yet to come. Thanks for your work, Doc, because really, you're giving us a better indication of how the brain is really working, and we need that. We need you. We need you. You're the trailblazer here.
Oh, we need all of us.